Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. And my guest today is the host of a festival, Yarn Festival, Eva Christie, the host of Scottish Yarn Festival. And it's happening actually super soon. So if you guys were on the fence, sort of, should you go or should you not, as I was, and I might change my mind during this interview. So pay attention, right? It's happening September 9 and 10 of this year in Perth, Scotland. First of all, welcome to my channel. We were talking for a while, like I feel like we've been friends already on Instagram, but welcome to my channel.
Thank you so much for having me, Irina. This is a massive honour and privilege for me. I've been watching you for quite some time now. I think the first episode I caught was the one with stitching in the kitchen. And I'm not quite sure what happened for the algorithm to kind of throw that one up, but I loved everything about it, immediately subscribed, followed you on Instagram, and it's been amazing seeing how your channel's growing. So when you reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in coming on and being a guest, it was just like one of these, oh my goodness, Serena wants me sort of moments. So thank you to you for taking the time and for reaching out.
Well, thank you for being my guest. But like the thing is, I'm always fascinated with yarn festivals. I mean, to me, Yarn Festival is my happy place. Like I go there, I see so many people I know from Instagram, I meet online, and then suddenly I get the chance of like talking to them in real life, feeling that yarn that I saw on Instagram in real life. So to me, it's like my Disney World idea of my idea of entertainment is going to festival. And I have never been to a European festival yet. And I'm very fascinated with them and with all the organization that goes into them. So tell me, like back to 2016, first year, how did it all start?
Accidentally is probably the easiest way to that. So I will give you a little bit kind of like the origin story of it. It was never going to be something I was going to do. So that would have been about 8 years ago, but 10 years ago, I ended up being rushed into hospital with sepsis and was in hospital for 2 weeks. I was extremely ill. I didn't realise just how ill I was until following emergency surgery. 4 days later on the ward, and the parents came to visit, and I took one look at their faces and went, what's wrong? What have you just been told? And the flip side of that, without drawing that out too long, is that I ended up with ME as a result. I had to give up my job. I spent almost a full year, up to 20 hours a day in my bed. It was too much just to get up and go into the kitchen to switch on the kettle. That was too exhausting. And I was in my early 30s at that point and didn't know what was going to happen. I had knitting as a bit of a distraction when I had some energy, something to do. I ended up podcasting for a while. Those episodes are still up on YouTube if anyone wants entertained. And yeah, the knitting sort of industry and community was very, very different back then. But at that time, I think there was only about maybe 5 Scottish knitting podcasters that really I was aware of anyway. There wasn't a huge amount of them. And there was supposed to be a smaller event kind of way up in Highland Perthshire one day, and I was doing a bit of knitwear design at the time, just again more as a sort of distraction technique. I wasn't selling anything. But I was doing my podcast and it got cancelled for short notice, and friends of mine who were supposed to be going to that event and selling were really quite let down as a result, by that event not being able to go ahead. And it didn't go ahead because they hadn't got the paperwork in place. So that's something, if you're ending up doing a yarn festival and you think, oh, you must, a bit like running a yarn shop, you get to sit and you get to knit and crochet and spin and all these things all day. No, no, you don't. There's a lot of admin work goes into it. It really is kind of project management, and there's a lot of legal work and framework and things that need to be in place. So this event was cancelled with about a week's notice to go because they hadn't got the licence in place that they needed to be able to hold the event. And I kind of got involved because it should have been happening within Perthshire. I knew some people in the local authority and council who might have been able to help. So I contacted them just as sort of feedback, saying, you know, this isn't great, and particularly at a time that the council is getting lambasted and criticised in social media, this is something that would have brought people to our area that would have been great. And obviously it can't go ahead now. And, you know, just a little bit of feedback, you know, is there maybe some way for the future that processes could be streamlined or whatever. And someone got back in touch with me and they said, well, if you want to go back to those organisers, if they will come X amount of miles down the road, I think it was about 30 miles down the road, we have a licence, we'll cover it here, we've spoken to a venue, we've got a venue for them. And I should say that this was very, very much a very, very small event. I think it was only about sort of 10 vendors or something. But I went to the organisers and the organisers said, no, it would be too damaging to our reputation to do a U-turn now. But thank you for that. And people talk. Within our industry, people talk. So I hadn't said anything, but it was found out that I had put myself out to try and do something for us to try and help that event so it could still go ahead. And a couple of those vendors got together and had a little chat amongst themselves and approached me and went, Eva, you had nothing to gain from that, but you seem to know what you're talking about. You think that you might want to put on a yarn event for us? And fast forward 10 weeks, all we had was word of mouth and a Facebook page, and we had what was at that time Perth Festival of Yarn, very first Perth Festival of Yarn, in the function room of a local hotel. And over 200 people turned up. We had about 15 stalls, 16 stalls, over 200 people turned up. And someone who became a friend of mine who was a vendor at that event, about an hour from the end, came up and she put her hands on my shoulders and she turned me around and she said, well, look at what you've created. There's something very special here. You need to keep going with this. And we did. So 11 months later, we went to where we hold the event now, which is the Jurors Centre. We had about 60 vendors at that event, I think. We had European vendors for the first time. We had international attendees at that point, and it became a full-time job. So, yeah.
I mean, I love this story because it's like accidentally putting yourself out there and suddenly this amazing event is happening. And it's a traditional event. And now you have it 2 times a year. So there's 2 different events, right? We have the Scottish Yarn Festival in the fall. And then in the spring, you had the Scottish Wool Producers Showcase, which completely sold out. Yeah.
So who would set up a new yarn event coming out of lockdown and the cost of living crisis and things? Sometimes I don't know what goes on in my head, but I was sitting down and I was thinking about the festival one day. I think about it every single day because it's my full-time job. But I was very well aware, much as I love the festival, that there's a lot of our small producers are up against the cult of personality when it comes to a yarn festival. So when you go to a full-on yarn festival, you've got who I term the nitterati. So that's your influencers, your famous people. Some people just go to people watch or in the hopes that they might get the opportunity to see somebody, whether that's in a marketplace or in a class or whatever. And then you've got our single origin wool producers who very may well be a shepherd living on their own in an extremely rural location. Right. With all the mental health problems that go with that don't have a reliable broadband connection. So even with the best will in the world, them trying to market themselves isn't going to help. They're not on. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. It's almost like, the Yarn Festival, everybody's in the boat, but it's not always fairly weighted to everyone that's within that boat. And the showcase really has become, for me, it's a passion project. So the festival is my full-time job. It's my sole source of income. This is my passion project. So this is your single origin wool producers. This is Scottish wool mills, of which we don't have many remaining at all. We've had a couple of people that use UK yarn bases or British wool bases, but they are hand dyers in Scotland. and it's an opportunity for those people to have a special event formed around them with some inspirational talks that are really quite niche, to kind of come along and to meet those producers without having to without them having to kind of compete against some of those huge names, or some of those huge personalities. So it's a very different sort of event, despite the two having marketplaces, having sort of fringe events, and the showcase is just, it's a one-day event. And again, straight off from when we organised it, we have people travelling internationally just for that one day, just for that smaller, reduced number of vendors, that very kind of boutique, carefully curated, gently nurtured event.
Well, I mean, and to me, I see more and more of it. And I think like people like you play a tremendous role in this industry, because wool production became almost like obsolete at some point. Like it used to be one of the biggest industries in Great Britain, and now it's in a lot of cases it's cheaper to burn the wool than to shear the wool and like spin the wool and go with it. And I feel like when people bring attention to that, when they explain the quality of wool, when they explain the origins of wool, like it makes every project very special. It makes every project very different.
It really does.
Right.
I'm going to grab from here because I've got my yarn collection behind me. So, for example, this is one of the producers, and I'm really, really proud and supportive of all my producers that are involved in either of my events. But this is one that's extremely close to my heart. So I'm just going to use this opportunity as a wee platform. So this is one of the cones I've got. This is Iona wool. And what makes this incredibly special is that it comes from the Isle of Iona in Scotland. So they sort of have a bit of a cooperative thing going about, that all the crofts on the island, and it's a very, very small island to begin with, not a huge amount of people actually living on it. They put all the fleece together, or they get all the fleece together, and then they sort through them, and then decide, right, these are the ones that we're going to send to the mill. So every single year, you'll get like a postcard with the percentages, and there's like a mix of 5 or 6 different type of fleece that will go into the wool, and it varies year on year, and it will vary depending on, you know, who's had lambs, what colour the coats are, and the quality of those as well. And then it goes to the mill, and they have production for that year, and once it's gone, it's gone. But they produce wool, and they produce some sort of like machine knit socks, and they send some to a weaving mill as well, so you can get blankets. And it's so incredibly precious. And part of what I love about what I get to do is that I get to support people like that. Michael, in particular, Michael Gordon, who along with his lovely wife, are, you know, the main part of Iona wool. You know, getting them to come last year on 2 ferries just to get onto the mainland, to then come down to Perth and to be there and to talk about his story and what he does. And he's not a knitter, and they occasionally get things put in their shop. So you can go to the craft shop on Iona and buy the wool there, or you can get it online. But, you know, there were several of us there who've actually knit with Iona wool, going, here's samples for the stall. And I love that. So, yeah.
The two festivals are very different in this respect, right? Like, and they have different goals for them. So last year, the Scottish Wool Producer Showcase sold out. Do you foresee that happening to this Scottish Yarn Festival as well at some point?
I don't know. I don't know.
It seems like it's more logical because it's like more people participate, more out of the country people participate, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like it's going to grow much faster even. Are you afraid it's going to sell out?
I would love it to sell out. I want everyone to be able to come in and to get that opportunity. The building that we have it in, and we practically take over the entire building for this event, is one of the top 5 largest exhibition spaces in Scotland. So it's very well located geographically. I think about 90% of the Scottish population lives within a 2-hour drive or 2 hours of being able to get to Perth. So it's a really central location for that. It's at the gateway to the Highlands. So you've got fantastic scenery and just a base to kind of explore everywhere. I don't know. I mean, there were various reasons for rebranding from Perth Festival of Yarn to the Scottish Yarn Festival, and I'm incredibly proud of it. And of course, I would like to see more footfall. Who wouldn't? But I'm trying to be mindful as well at the same time that domestically we are in a cost of living crisis. Things have changed very much since lockdown. It's incredibly difficult to predict. And I came into this not with a business management background. I studied music, and there have been transferable skills from that. But I've been self-employed before and I swore never, ever again. And yet here, 8 years on. So sometimes, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. So I don't know. What I would say is if you are wanting to come and you're able to buy your tickets in advance, then please do that, because what we do for the festival itself, or we have done up until this point anyway, and we'll reassess afterwards, is that we keep a set amount of single day entry tickets available on the door, because we know not everyone can plan. But at the same time, we don't have that crystal ball that says X amount of people are going to turn up without a ticket and they'll all get in.
Right.
So if you're coming any great distance or you're worried at all, get your tickets in advance. If not, Sunday is always quieter. That's just the nature of yarn events. Your second day is always going to be quieter. Where we go with the showcase, I don't know whether we consider extending it to 2 days. I don't really want to grow that too much. I think it's kind of perfect in its way. It's not about making money for me. Everything's got to be sustainable in its own way. But yeah, I have never really thought about the festival. What a funny thing. I've never really thought about it in terms of being sold out. I'm not quite sure why, but maybe because it is so big and there's so much space. And one of the things that our event is known for is the amount of space that there is to just walk around and take it all, so that even though it is busy, it never really feels busy. You never feel cramped.
Right. Well, let's talk about that yarn behind you. Like being an organizer of Yarn Festival, do you get overwhelmed with that? Like the amount of possibilities in your hands, basically, like you can buy any and all of it. How do you decide what comes home with you from the festival?
It changes. So I do have, you know, yarn in my personal yarn collection that I've had since a long time before becoming a yarn festival director. I mean, I've been knitting for over 30 years now. Tried crochet several times, and it's the muscle memory. The things are not there. I love and I admire it, but I cannot. And then I don't have time every time I think, oh, I'll designate time to learning that. It just doesn't happen because something else occurs. What comes home with me? I don't know. What I try and do is I try and focus on the people that believe in me to deliver the festivals year on year. I want to kind of support them in turn. There is an awful lot. There's even more over here, but there is quite a lot of along here, kind of indie hand-dyed single skeins. There's a lot of single yarn origin here and over there as well. So I think where I'm being drawn to the most is at the moment is solid colour or tonal colour, single origin, Scottish origin. But this is all commercial sock yarn, and I'm a very big sock knitter as well. But it's difficult because I do want to take it all home, and I'm in a very privileged position that I get yarn gifts from time to time as well. Trying to think, because I'm surrounded by yarn, but one of the projects I've got my needles just now is just a basic beanie, but I want to have this ready for woolen folk when I cross the pond later in the year. But this is Anfield Farm, and the colour is blowing out. It's a beautiful colour called Luskentire, and this is pretty local. I think they're only about 30 miles. I'm trying to think. I was about to say south. I think they're southeast to where I am. Lorianne and Andrew and their flock. I think flock, is it flock or herd? I'm not quite sure. But they have mohair goats, Angora goats. Yeah. And these are their goats. and then they work with the local farmers to get the sheep fleece and they blend it together. So yeah, this seems to be what I'm doing at the moment. And I think, you know, the more I get involved with the single origin side of it, that certainly seems to be where I'm going at the minute. And I am seeing more and more people starting to kind of diversify, and instead of burning or burying the fleece, they are looking to get it into the mills. And I want to encourage that and to show that it sells. So sometimes you need to put your money where your mouth is.
Right.
I think, but I love it all. Don't make me choose between my children.
Tell me about what people don't know that's going into the preparation for festival.
The amount of paperwork, I would say. So you would think it is a creative job, but it's creative in different ways, and that you have to find creative solutions to problems when they arise, and they will arise, and things will go wrong, and they will always go wrong. And generally, it doesn't matter how well you've planned, you're not going to plan for the thing that goes wrong. So for us last year, I think it was 48 hours before our doors opened, we had torrential rain. So you're thinking, okay, it's Scotland, but it's September in Scotland. We got torrential rain. I live about a mile away from our venue. And while I was trying to load merchandise and had stock up here from our remote vendors, I was trying to get that ready to go down to our venue, and my back garden started flooding. And it was 2 centimetres of rain off the back doorstep, and I'm going, it can't come in here. I've got all this stock here, all this stuff I'm trying to move for the festival. So you're trying to get that upstairs and out the way, going, household insurance will cover anything else, sentimental items are away. I can't let the stock get ruined. So trying to deal with that, and then a matter of hours later, the Queen passed away. So I was kind of oblivious really much as to what was going on in the news, because in particular the sort of 3 or 4 days before the event, you've suddenly got vendors who have got problems that they hadn't planned for, that they couldn't have imagined happening, or getting in touch, and some of them are needing additional support for that. And then you've got the rush of, I haven't got my tickets, I know I've got my tickets, they're not here, and you're trying to think, yeah, you have got your tickets, but they went into your spam folder and you didn't open your spam within 30 days, and now they're gone, and now you're wanting us to find the tickets at the busiest time of the year, as we're getting ready to set up a venue and things. So that was going on. But I think the first email we got, so the Queen passed away, the news here announced it just after 6 p.m. in the evening, and I was given 20 minutes grace before the first email came through from the website. What are you planning to do at the weekend? Are you still going ahead? At which point office hours have closed, and I've got no way of contacting my venue, my security team, my volunteers.
Right.
We already have international tour groups in the country. What do we do? Plus the fact that your insurance, and you need a lot of insurance and different types of insurance to hold an event, none of them will cover you for the death of the head of state. It's like, okay, personal feelings aside, if this event cannot go ahead, I've lost my entire livelihood. I won't bounce back from this. I mean, I managed to get it through a pandemic.
Right.
I've managed to get it through Brexit. This will be the death knell, because if we do this, the insurance isn't going to pay out. Too close to cancel anything. I'm not a limited company. This is me. This is my income. This is on me. And it's not just me. It's all the businesses that put their trust in me every single year. They need that trade, they need that weekend to help pay their bills, to sustain their families. So I think we've had stressful situations and things have happened. I think that was it. That was an incredibly stressful weekend, and it also coincided with a very painful personal anniversary for me as well. And a few people kind of knew about that, and I was just like on autopilot. Because you have to be. I think that's the big thing, that if you're going to do something like this, the duty of care, or certainly I feel a massive duty of care to everybody, because it's not just my income, it's everyone else's income.
Right.
And the people who are coming as attendees have saved up considerably to travel, to be there, and they're they're wanting a good time, and you've got to deliver that for them as well. So there's quite a lot of pressure can be involved.
Do you ever regret volunteering that day?
There are moments. I think there's moments with every job, isn't there? And there are moments of high stress, and I go, never again, I'm not doing this. But most of the festival happens like over a 9-month period. So we open up applications in January, which only ever started being in that time of year because it was quieter. Tax returns at the end of January here, and where that sort of lull between sort of Christmas and New Year and people going back to work if they're employed by someone. But this will be a good time. So normally for me, in sort of like the before times, before COVID and everything, festival preparation for an entire year is normally about 18 months long. But most of it these days is 9 months. It's 9 months from applications opening to actual delivery. So if you kind of think of that in terms of a pregnancy, it's like you go through it, and it gets heavier, and you get more tired as you get closer, and you go never again. Then you go through the actual physical pain of some of those elements of the festival, and then it's like the following day you've forgotten all about it.
Well, what's your favorite moment? Like the doors of the festival open. What's your favorite feeling or moment about the festival?
I'm in complete stress for the first hour on the first day. I think that is the best way to describe it. I mean, I love doing what I do, but I think the most stressful normal times are ticket release, have the tickets actually been released, set up, and everyone's actually setting up, and when the doors open, you know, and people start to come in. And after that first hour, I'm okay. But if you catch me within that first hour, you're probably going to get like an absolute blank stare because I haven't slept in days and I'm running out of caffeine and adrenaline and all those good things. But the best things, it's the people. It's the people, I think. And I get to hear the buzz, and you feel the energy and the atmosphere. And you've got, yeah, just people coming together. Sometimes, you know, people come every year. Sometimes we have international travellers come every single year, and they'll come wearing something that they bought from one of the returning vendors, and they just want to go and show them. And I live it. I tend to live the festival more through everyone else's eyes. Afterwards, I'll watch the podcasters who come and have taken video footage. I'll get to watch the vendor tours around the marketplace. Oh, look at all those beautiful things that I didn't see because I was just doing all the things all the time, constantly risk assessing the event while it's running to make sure that no one's left a bag somewhere or whatever. But I think overall, favourite moments throughout the years, I think the first time I met Trelease. So unfortunately, because of Brexit now, we have the difficulty of being able to bring over vendors from the EU. And when we reach out to tutors from outside the UK now, we have to go through a process to apply for permitted paid engagement visas and all the things that go along with that. But 2017, which is like our second year, our first proper year, if you like, and I got an application from this guy I'd never heard of who was based in Athens. And I replied back, and I don't mean to be rude, but we're in Perth in Scotland and we're not in Perth, Australia, where you may be applying for an event here. And she's like, no, I know where you are. And Louise and I have become really, really close since then. I personally went to go meet her from the train station when she arrived. And we've been talking in the run up, and she had a podcast and I was watching her, and I kind of felt that I knew her in a way. And she was there, and we were just outside, and we were waiting for a taxi to pick us up so that I could take her to her hotel. And I remember standing outside the station going, "You're actually real, and I can't believe you're here." That's a moment that I've carried. I'm trying to think of other. There are so many. Do you know, there are just so many magical moments, and part of what I love most about my job is kind of facilitating collaborations between people. So they'll meet at the festival, or they'll say, Eva, you know people, you've been doing this a long time. I'm looking for yarn support for blah blah blah. Can you think of someone, and all those sorts of things? And the festival brings that about. and I'm really proud of that. I know a lot of people say you shouldn't be proud of yourself or proud of your work, but I am. I feel
I
there's
totally
aspects of this
think you
which are
should be proud of yourself.
it's a force of good. So yeah, I think there's things like that. There's moments like that. There are, I don't know whether they want to be disclosed or not, but there's been certain celebrities within our world that have just turned up unannounced sometimes, or there's been whisperings, and it's like, you do realise so and so is in the building. It's what? No, and you're fangirling yourself then. Because at the end of the day, I'm a crafter too. You know, I ended up initially doing all these things because I loved it, because of the joy of craft.
Right.
So I'm not immune to it. But yeah, there's moments like that, I think. Yeah.
How do you decide who is going to be a vendor, or how do you recruit vendors? How do you get new vendors to come?
Okay, so it's different for both the events. So I'll take the showcase first, and that's on invitation only because it is much smaller. Most of the showcase vendors, particularly the first year round, were people that I already knew or had an awareness of, or who were recommended to me. So that's kind of how that came about. But for both events, I would always say, you know, go onto our website. You can send us an email through there. Introduce yourself, because, you know, I spend hours every single day working on the event. I watch podcasts, I listen to podcasts, I follow social media, I do all the things, I signed up to newsletters. But the best will in the world, I will never come across everyone that I should be aware of. So I love it when people introduce themselves. That's always a bonus, and include where I can find you on social media or your website. Send me photos, rather than just oh, hi, I do this, how can I get involved? Because that doesn't really give me much information to then go on. If you provide that to me, that is really, really helpful. For the main festival, we don't recruit. There might be one or two people on occasion that we would really, really like to get. And, you know, it's almost like pie in the sky, you know, dinner table scenario. If you could choose anyone at all, who would you like? Who would you invite? And there might occasionally be people like that we might reach out to. But usually it's more open, it's far more fair than that. We open the applications every single January, early January. We announce that in our social media, we announce it in our newsletter. We keep shouting about it until the application period closes. And it is quite a narrow window of about 6 or 7 weeks, because we do get a lot of applications. So that shouldn't put anyone off, because one of the things we're famed for is for giving people a platform that might not have done any events before, who are absolutely brand new, because I think there's as much value to bringing that new blood into what we do, as well as having the veterans. So we always kind of put a cover letter in with our application saying, you know, just be honest and be truthful. Don't preempt what you think we're looking for.
Right.
It can guarantee you probably don't know what we're looking for. So just tell us your story, be honest about it, almost treat it in a way as being a job application, and, you know, we'll kind of take it from there. But I think when it comes to choosing what we're looking for, and we don't always get it because people's own personal circumstances change, or they might have a family wedding that weekend, so they can't apply this year, or all those things. We try and get a mix between your indie dyed, your, you know, single origin, your mills, your tools like looms and wheels and all that wonderful stuff, yarn bowls. We really struggled this year to get a ceramicist. I tried and tried and tried to get a ceramicist, and it couldn't happen. We couldn't get Emily Cross this year, who is extremely well known across the UK for doing yarn events, and she couldn't make it. And we tried to get someone local, but it's the same weekend as our open studio, so everyone just wants to be in their own space doing it, which is totally understandable. So, you know, there's years that we can't get what we want, but we're always looking for something new, and we're always looking for something a little bit different from other festivals and what they've got as well, because there's no point in going around to all the events all the time and seeing all the same vendors and all the same well-kent faces from the industry there. And things, because what happens is you just end up with reduced footfall at the events and less spend happening with those vendors at the events, and actually the organisers suffer as well, because they're relying on the ticket money to keep everything sustainable too. So yeah, we're always looking at trying to create a really well-rounded event with surprises and different things each time. Just every time we seem to add something new or looking for something new.
Let's talk about some fun events happening at the festival. So you have some lectures, you have some classes that you offer. How do you go about planning those?
Again, I'm looking for something different than what I've seen anywhere else. And again, it's usually by reaching out. So the situation with the tutors is much more difficult these days. So this year, I'm delighted that we've got Andre de Castro. He's coming back. He's coming from Portugal. And I think this is the third time that we've had him at the festival. In fact, I think we were the first ever festival that he taught at. And you look now, he's doing Vogue and everything. So might just take a little bit of the credit for that. No, remember us from your dizzy heights. But yeah, we absolutely adore Andre. But in having that conversation, because he's quite sought after now, it's like, well, we're going to have to bring you over. You're from a European country, so we're going to have to do all these extra things that we didn't need to do before to get you here. We need to make sure that we sell as many tickets as possible. And it's more difficult, particularly coming out of a pandemic when everything was available online all the time at reduced cost, because with organisers, we've got the additional costs of tutors' fees, usually per class, travel expenses, accommodation expenses. We've now got to pay for visas on top of that. Right. We have to pay the hire for the room to have the class in. We have to market the class. PayPal will take their cut from the ticket price, and we can only have X amount of people in the room as well. So when you add all that up, you've got to make sure, or I think you've got to make sure that you've got to have something really dynamic, something really interesting, something really engaging that you're just not going to find anywhere else. So I had that conversation with Andre and said, well, you've done these classes with us before. I know, roughly how many people kind of return year on year, roughly what sort of things they're looking for. What can you give me that's different? So this year he's doing a class on Bavarian twisted stitches, and also, which again is really, really niche, I've never seen anyone else do it or talk about it, lace edgings from Serbia. So I love that, we've got these endangered knitting traditions, right, that Andre has gone and he's studied and he's trying to keep them alive. And again, in my mind, we're doing our little bit to help the preservation of those. And that to me is really important. Again, that's something I'm really quite proud of, that we can do something like that. So we've cut down on our class offerings this year because there's so much available for free on YouTube, on other platforms, by going to your local knitting group or going to an LYS, and we just cannot compete with free tuition. We've got our overheads and things. So when we do that, we need something that's really different that we will ideally sell out on, that's really niche and it has value as well. And to me, the value with those, as well as having a world-class, internationally respected tutor, is we've got these endangered regional techniques and we've got to keep those alive. So
and Andre is like a perfect tutor for that, because not only he is super charming and you guys gonna love him, but he is also like very knowledgeable at what he does, and like the way he explains, it's like very easy to understand everything. So it's definitely like a value in those classes.
Definitely. With the classes, I mean, I'm trying to think about not just this year. This year we've got the Wool Library are coming in there doing a talk about designing for breeding, celebrating British wool. And we've got Susan from the Journal of Scottish Yarns doing the journey to journal. So she'll be talking about what led her to starting up this international publication, what she kind of looks for there when she's putting each issue together, how it feels when she's got, a final copy in her hands, and what her plans for the future are. So again, that's something that I think people are really interested in knowing about, that'll have a different focus from maybe interviews and things that she's done, because I know that you've done a fantastic interview with her. So again,
on my channel, I'm actually like very
what can you do that's different than what's already out there? But we had Amy Palko last year. So again, someone that you've interviewed, Amy, with the
but she brought all her collection of Stephen West shawls with her for that, I've heard.
Yeah, so I approached her with this idea, and just because I watch her podcast, and she'd actually been coming to the festival for years before she started podcasting.
I
So
think
kind
that's
of
how I
knew
discovered
who
the festival, actually, through Emmy's podcast. I've heard her talking about it, and I was like, oh, I want to go there.
She is definitely one of our biggest champions. I could not love that woman enough for everything that she's done for us. But I watched her podcast, and I knew her already, and I think I mentioned it to her at the showcase, because she came to the showcase just for fun. And I kind of took her aside for a moment and went, would you be interested in doing this? And this is what I'm thinking. I said, look, you knit so many Stephen West shawls. So it would be lovely to do a focus on your love for Stephen West shawls, which I don't think I've ever really seen anyone do. I mean, I know that you've done your series now on People of West Knits, but there wasn't really anyone doing anything kind of like that. And I thought that's an interesting angle to kind of come at it from. And I know a lot of people kind of struggle with colour theory and how you select colour palettes. And again, I think that's something that Amy is exceptional with, because she's so good at putting colours together that you just would not think that would work. So we did that, and I said to her, if you come and do this, and come early, and I'd kind of put an email out and announced to my vendors, we have Amy Palko in the building, and this is her if you're not aware of her. And she's doing this talk, but as part of that, she's going to be putting these colour palettes together. So this is what she looks like, and she'll be coming around the marketplace, and just let her take your yarn, because she's going to take it into her talk with her. And she spent some time sort of taking samples from the stalls to use as part of her talk, as well as curating colour palettes. And again, I thought, I don't think anyone's done anything like that before.
Yeah,
that's
I haven't heard
a little bit different. Yeah, so I think that's kind of where we come up for our classes. We've had Gilpin do a talk, 30 years in the industry, working with the likes of Kanye West and all sorts, and you just so lucky to be surrounded by so many creative forces. Really,
I have a personal question. How did your life change with all of this? Like, think of yourself in 2015 and think of yourself now. Like, what changed?
The festival's been the making of me, I think, as well. I was very different, having to give up my full-time job, being told by my GP that I'd never managed to hold down another 9-to-5 job again. Physically, you just won't be able to do it. The mental impact of that. I've been living with my partner. We're not together anymore, but we've been together in a long-term relationship. And just because of circumstances and things and what his income was, not that it was a huge income, I was told, well, prove you've got a disability when it's a hidden disability. You're not going to be entitled to anything. So being reliant on him, and basically just feeling, I'm in my early 30s, I could have another 50 odd years of life left. And I think there's always been like a feisty element to me, which I don't think is a bad thing. But there's always been almost like a survival instinct of, you can't give up. You have to keep going. You might have to modify, and you might need to change, and you might need to accept. But you cannot give up. Giving up is not an option. So I look back at some of the photos from the very first festival, and even sort of 2017, and I still look extremely ill. You could see it in my face, the amount of weight and things that I'd lost. I mean, I was extremely ill, and then the muscle wastage coming off the back of it. Yeah, I don't know where to be without the festival now. I mean, there are changes afoot. I've got a big secret that I'm sitting on that I can't share yet. I was hoping to be in a position to, but I can't. So just keep watching on social media, and everything continuing to be well. There will be something big happening at the festival that we haven't been able to talk about yet. And that's exciting, but I think it's given me a sense of self back. I've got my confidence back. I wasn't happy doing the job that I was doing prior to becoming ill. It was a job I'd done for 8 years, and I'd accidentally ending up in that one following being made redundant twice in the space of 6 months, and just taking the first job that came along. And I think we've all been in situations like that, and a lot of us then turn to craft as therapy to get us through that. I don't know where I'd be. I think a lot of my sense of identity is caught up with what I do. And I was thinking earlier, because we're kind of in holiday season at the moment, I don't think I've had any longer than 2 or 3 days without being involved with some sort of work in the festival at all in 8 years, which sounds really unhealthy, but it's the way it is when you're self-employed to an extent. So yeah, I don't know what I do. I mean, I've got a dream job that I would do if I wasn't doing this, but it's absolutely pie in the sky, and it wouldn't pay the bills. Yeah, I don't know is the honest answer to that one. Yeah.
No, and I think it's like very, to me, this is the beautiful part of your story, because, you know, like we often get to an age or some situation in our life when we sort of lose ourselves, and like to rediscover yourself through this community and through this craft. To me, this is like beautiful part of your story.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I've been doing a lot of reflecting at the moment, because there's a lot of things going on within my personal life and with family and things like that. And I do have a terminally ill family member at the moment, which is incredibly difficult. So there's been a lot of sort of internal reflection and things like that, because I'm thinking, you know, I'm in my early 40s now. I'm that sandwich generation, you know, where women in particular are pulled in all directions, and I should be having my midlife crisis, you know, because, you know, you're caring for children, you're looking after, you know, generally at this time of year, you know, your parents are needing more support because they're becoming more frail or whatever, and then you've got the extra demands of work. And traditionally it's like, yeah, midlife crisis in your 40s, of course it is, and this is the reasons why. And in a way, I feel actually at this point I'm coming into my own. I don't know if it's because, again, it's that immense sense of pride. And I was talking to Celia McWheely about it the other day, and she's like, you should be expletives and certitude, extremely proud of what you achieved, because there's not many people that actually work in this industry that can turn around and say that they've been doing it for 8 years. Never mind within the actual events part of that.
Right.
Within our industry, there really aren't that many people that are still doing it. And I've managed to get it through lockdown, get it through Brexit, and continuing to go. And not only that, bring out a new event and rebrand. And we're going to Rolling Folk in October, which is just incredible.
I'm like so excited when you told me.
Yeah, so we've got that happening. And the big secret thing that I can't talk about yet as well, in a way, I feel I'm 8 years into this journey, and it's a journey, and we evolve all the time. But I feel in a way I'm coming into my own. And maybe just finally embracing that. Certainly rebranding as a Scottish Yarn Festival, the time had to be right to do that. And we went with Hogmanay, because it doesn't get any more Scottish than Hogmanay to announce something like that. And it's like, do you know what? It's about time that we kind of stood into this, and we kind of like took ownership of the fact that on average, we have people join from 17 different countries every single year. We have people come from South Africa for the first time last year. This time we've got people coming from Mexico and Hong Kong for the first time ever. And every time that I see ticket sales of something like that, every ticket sale is precious and important, and you get that little fuzzy feeling inside every time you see a ticket sold. But when you get people like that, or you get people that are returning for a second year from Canada, or one person in particular, Karina, who literally comes every single year from Munich, it's like, I'm doing something right.
Right.
You might be going through a difficult phase just now, but just keep going, because you're doing something right. But you need to be fluid, and you've got to be able to evolve with it as well.
Well, if somebody thinking about coming to Perth, right? Tell us about, like, if we're not from Scotland, you said it's like 2 hours from anywhere in Scotland, pretty much. But if we are not from Scotland and we're thinking of coming to your festival, how logistically difficult it is to get to Perth?
Is this you personally, Irina?
Asking for a friend.
Generic fibre crafter.
I'm asking for 11,000 friends.
Okay, so you want to come anyway, because there's so much history. There's so much history here. We've got Jacobean battle sites. We've got Scone Palace just a few miles up the road. In 2024, the Stone of Destiny is coming back to Scotland. So that is the big lump of rock which all the kings and queens of Scotland and the UK when they're having their coronation, they have to sit on it. Cause controversy here. It belongs to Scotland. It belongs to us, and it's coming back. It's actually coming back to Perth in 2024. They're putting the final touches on a brand new museum. So we've got lots of arts and culture. We're actually in an UNESCO City of Craft and Folk Art. I think we might be the first one ever. So we've got that title as well. And we were mentioned as part of the winning bid, which again is another very, very sort of proud moment that we got included. But logistically, so there's plenty of things aside from the festival to come. So bring your non-knitting partner, friend, family as well. But you can easily get to Perth from overseas by coming into Glasgow International Airport or Edinburgh International Airport. So, for example, from Glasgow, you want to fly into Glasgow, you want to get the shuttle bus that goes into the city centre, which during the day is about every sort of 10 to 15 minutes. It will drop you directly outside Queen Street Station, and you want to get on a train there. All the trains go to Perth. So you're about an hour on the train through some fantastic scenery. And it's a similar situation coming through Edinburgh International Airport as well. So you'll fly in there. The easiest way I find when I'm travelling in and out the country is to get the tram because you can get a tram or a bus or a train, but you want to get the tram along to Edinburgh Gateway. And then when you arrive at Edinburgh Gateway, you go up an escalator or the lift up onto the higher level, and it's a train station. And very regularly, trains come through. They come through from central Edinburgh itself, through Edinburgh Gateway to Perth. They all go to Perth, and it's about an hour. You're about an hour either way on the train, so you're extremely well connected. You could probably fly in to Inverness and connect down to Glasgow and Edinburgh and things, depending where you're coming from. But the most sort of stable and regular routes, Glasgow International, Edinburgh International. We've had people come before on the Eurostar through Europe, right. And they've come through into the Eurostar into London Euston, and then they've got trains up as well. So even if you're just like beyond the border and the likes of Newcastle, which is practically Scotland anyway, you're an hour 20 on LNER on the trains there to get from Edinburgh to Newcastle stations, and then another hour from Edinburgh to Perth. So we're an awful lot closer than you think. And if you can't come, which you're coming, Irina, but for anyone at home, there's a lot of video footage. We compile playlists on YouTube every single year with everybody's kind of like yarn hauls and walks around and the little snippets from classes and things like that. So, you can, one of the things is like, how do you make a festival as inclusive as you possibly can? Well, you can have cals and make-alongs that you can take part in wherever you are, so you can celebrate at home, and then you can live it vicariously through the interviews that we do with our vendors and through that footage, watch that footage and things as well. So, yeah.
And you have a lot of information on your Instagram. You go live with a lot of vendors. So, like, if people wanna follow you on Instagram, they'll get a glimpse into like all that goes into the preparation and some of the vendors that coming and some of the things that happening on your Instagram. And I'm gonna put all the information about the festival, how to get there and all these things in the description of this video. So if you guys are thinking of coming, let me know in the comments, because that might just tilt it the scale into that direction for me. I'm actually like really contemplating trying to book for the airline that's going to take me there.
Well, if it doesn't happen, I touched on it a little bit there. So we're taking the Scottish Yarn Festival to Woolenfolk.
Yeah, we're definitely meeting there. I'm going to be at your table at Woolenfolk for a meet and greet, and so come see both of us there. We're going to be there.
Yeah, it's like I have to have some sort of secret that I can unveil when I'm doing it with the arena. And I thought, well, that's probably the best one. So we haven't actually sort of publicly mentioned that anywhere before. So you're getting an exclusive. So yeah, we haven't quite worked out the time yet, but everyone who's watching this should be following your social media anyway, and we'll announce it when we know what's happening, because Amy Palko and Rebecca Clow with Crayabea, they're going over to Rhinebeck. I think they're flying out in the same day as us from the same same airport, but on a different flight. So I'm bringing Katie from Sealing McWillie over to help me because I can't manage. I can't manage it on my own. But we're going to host Scottish podcasters. So a Scottish podcaster, kind of meet and greet at our stall, and then a meet and greet with you as well in the day.
No, I'm very excited about that. I've been waiting to meet Amy in person for the longest time, so that's even better.
She's an absolute sweetheart of a human. She really, really is. You'll love her.
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person earlier or later. That's still in the works, but
I'm going to manifest it. Definitely. We managed to bring you over. No, it would be wonderful. And if we can't make it happen this year, then definitely in future years we have to have you come and join the Scottish Yarn Festival and, get that sort of traditional Scottish welcome, which I think we extend.
I'd love that. Well, thanks so much, Eva. Thank you for being a guest of my channel today. Thank you for letting us into the works of the preparation, what goes into the preparation for the festival. And if you guys want to come there, I'll put all the information in the description of this video. So do join. It's going to be fun. You know it.
No, thank you so much for having me today. It's been an absolute delight, and yeah, I'm almost having a fangirl moment. I can't believe I'm on Fiberchats.
I have one last question to ask you. I almost forgot about it, and that was like when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, like I have to ask about it. I've heard there is a gin fight going on at the festival.
Not this year. We've changed it up this year, but we have in the past have had gin flights. So the Scots, being inventive as they are, you've got that sort of national drink of being whiskey, having a dram, and iron brew, which is also known. But you've already got distilleries for the whiskey. What else are you going to do? Let's produce gin. So most distilleries in Scotland also produce gin, and we have a few within Perth. So we have in the past done local Perthshire gin flights. So you would come and sample some of that and have a bit of a craft and natter. We wanted to change it up this year. So this year, what we're doing is an event on the Saturday night at the station. I was going to say the Station Hotel. It's not the Station Hotel, at the Royal George Hotel, which is a fantastic building. Queen Victoria has stayed there. It's still got the old Victorian coach houses. So if you do want gin, Perth Gin Distillery is actually in that coach house beneath the hotel. So the stills are there. You will be able to get local gin served, but what we're doing this year is Sarah from Yarningham, who is a yarn festival director based in Birmingham, who has become a friend over the years. She's coming up. We're the festival that she goes to when she wants to go and enjoy one, because you do enjoy your own festival when you're working, but it's a very different experience. So she kind of escapes 2 hours to have fun. So I think the entire team of Yarningham are coming up. There's four of them. But Sarah is also a DJ.
Oh, I didn't.
So she's actually in the process at the minute of putting together a Spotify playlist of a sort of eclectic music collection that she spins, and we're going to put that out in a newsletter as a bit of a warm up to the event. But yeah, she's going to do. We're gonna have a DJ. Well, we can get up and have a bit of a boogie to the music, and we could do some crafting, and I think some people are bringing their spinning wheels as well for that evening. So spinning records, spinning wheels, but there will be local drinks, whether that's local whiskey, gins, beers, ales, all sorts at the bar as well. So you're not missing out. We're just not theming it as a gin flight this time, and that's part of what we do with the festival, is that we do change things up quite a lot. So it's not always the same thing. But yeah.
Well, if you needed another reason to visit that festival here, I just gave it to you. I'm sure that's going to be fun.
Definitely.
Well, thanks so much, Eva. Thank you, and I hope to see you really soon.
I will definitely see you very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.